Welcome to the Resilient Cities podcast. My name is Adinda. Today I am joined by three friends, Sachin, Lerow, and Jaime.
Hi guys, this is Sachin.
Hi guys, this is Lerow.
Hello guys, this is Jaime.
On today's episode, we're going to talk about Ciudad Juarez, or Juarez for short. Before we dive in, let's have a little recap about urban resilience. What is a resilient city, actually?
So, urban resilience refers to the capacity of cities and its community to anticipate, prepare, adapt, and recover from shocks and long-term stress, while continuing to maintain their essential services, functions, and quality of life.
In 2013, the Resilient Cities Network was established to support resilience collaboration and practice of cities around the globe. The network comprises 100 cities, and one of them is Juarez. Fortunately, we are joined by a native of city, our friend Jaime.
Hello guys, happy to be here.
So, tell us a bit about your city.
I love my city. I was born and raised there. However, there are many issues that I feel are important to discuss here with you guys.
So, set the scenes for our listeners. Where is Juarez and why is it such a unique city?
So, for those who might not know, Ciudad Juarez is located in northern Mexico. It's directly on the border with the U.S. city of El Paso, Texas. And the city itself is situated in the middle of the Chihuahuan Desert, which is extremely dry and arid. Juarez has a rich history as a desert border city. It's been shaped by transnational commerce, given that it's on the border with the United States. The history of Ciudad Juarez is incredibly rich. It was a bastion in the desert for various states over the course of centuries. When it was originally founded, it went by the name of Paso del Norte. It was founded by Spanish conquistadors in the mid-17th century. The city didn't actually become a frontier with the United States until after the Mexican-American War, where the U.S. southern border was established. And Ciudad Juarez got its name from there was the French intervention of the 19th century. At the time, leader Benito Juarez took refuge in Ciudad Juarez, and he led resistance efforts from the city. And so in honor of that, El Paso del Norte was renamed to Ciudad Juarez. Fast forward to the late 20th century, Juarez entered the industrial era that shapes today's modern city. So from the 1970s onward, federal programs helped establish manufacturing factories, making Juarez a major cross-border manufacturing hub. That growth drew people from across Mexico and grew the city very rapidly, and kind of created the context for today's challenges. So, those being pressure on a lot of our crucial services, a lot of our infrastructure, high water demand, and a lot of social stresses.
There is a lot to uncover there, in terms of both environmental and social issues. Let's start with the very basic piece of resilience, water. It sounds like Juarez is facing water paradox of drought and flooding.
Yeah, although we mostly have an extremely dry climate and struggle to provide fresh water to the city, we do get the occasional rainstorm that our drainage systems are simply just not prepared to handle. The result of this is severe flooding in areas of the city, especially the hilly areas found in the western parts of the city. These areas of the city are usually made up of informal settlements, and they haven't been properly integrated into the city's already quite poor drainage infrastructure. So these areas are incredibly vulnerable to flooding.
Sounds quite challenging because Juarez has to cope with both extremes. How do you even plan a water supply system for that situation?
Well, for irrigation water supply, we rely on the Rio Grande, which is acts as sort of the border between us and the U.S. This river has its origin in the U.S. state of Colorado. And in terms of drinking water, we source most of our water from the Hueco Bolson and the Mesillo aquifers, which are underground water storages that are under both the U.S. and Mexican side. So we do have to share that with our American counterparts, and we do have to ensure that there's collaboration between the two. It may sound like we have multiple sources of water, but the aquifers have been heavily pumped for decades, so groundwater levels are still declining and the water quality has degraded. And the Rio Grande's flow that reaches El Paso and Juarez depends heavily on upstream snowmelt, so it's not completely reliable.
Okay, so are there any development plans to improve the water management in Juarez?
Yeah, thankfully there is. According to the city's own resilience strategy, which was posted in 2018, Juarez plans to mitigate flooding by developing stormwater drainage upgrades and launching a green infrastructure pilot, that trains local stakeholders to install prototypes in flood-prone areas. Juarez also takes inspiration from Amman, in Jordan, which has a very similar climate. and has developed a rainfall water capture plan, to better manage our water resources.
Chennai did a similar thing. Drinking water is collected from the distillation plant, and the water reservoirs are used to hold the rainwater for the dry months.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Juarez is taking inspiration for climate adaptation, from places around the globe. Although Juarez is very far from any major bodies of water, I do believe that proper reservoirs that can store the rainwater that we do get sound like a very effective way to tackle both our drought issue and our flooding issue.
That's a tough environmental picture. Resilience is not only about water. You also mentioned some social challenges like safety. Have you heard Juarez used to be one of the most dangerous cities in the world?
Yeah, so according to a lot of researchers, news, as well as my own experience from growing up there, 2008 to 2010, I'd say, was the peak of violence. This was caused mainly by cartel conflicts over control of major drug trafficking routes into the U.S. But I would say, apart from drug-related violence, I'd say violence against women is incredibly high. It's been a long-standing social issue. In 2010, La Jornada, which is a newspaper back home, reported that the highest number of feminicides of 306 cases a year, which is insane. And so, as a result of this, people are sometimes very reluctant to leave their houses and socialize with each other, as it's still, is quite an unsafe city, unfortunately.
That's terrible. And what has changed since then?
So in 2010, the city recorded a homicide rate of approximately 283 people per 100,000 inhabitants, which at the time made Juarez the most violent city in the world. Although thankfully this number has now dropped to 60 per 100,000 inhabitants, it's still very, very high. And right now we're currently number 17 of most violent cities in the world.
I hope the city is also implementing strategies to eliminate violence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the city has a vision of an inclusive and prosperous Juarez by 2030. One of its programs are youth-focused activities to promote arts and culture, motivate them to stay in school, and hopefully discourage them from joining cartels or gangs. Measures in terms of improving women's safety, such as the 24-hour crisis centers, which we've recently been working on. And in addition, I think Juarez is also planning to create safer public spaces with, clearer wayfinding, more lighting, and, in the hopes that this will encourage people to just, go outside more and interact with each other.
Let's connect that to the city's growth. A big part of Juarez's story is informal neighborhoods, which are areas that grew outside of the formal planning and services.
Yeah, exactly. Informal settlements in Juarez, though, they didn't appear overnight. It started developing gradually along with the city when the city was experiencing rapid population growth due to our very industrial, economy. So between 2000 and 2015, Juarez's urban sprawl in this manner grew by about 40%, while the population itself actually only grew by 1%. So you can see just how much the sprawl was.
And what caused the rapid urban sprawl within those years?
So Juarez's rapid urban sprawl accelerated as it entered an industrial era. It became known as a maquiladora border city. Maquila is just a word we use in Juarez for a assembly factory. Where a lot of the parts were imported from the U.S. and then assembled in Juarez and then re-exported back to the U.S. So this really created a lot of land demand for factories and a lot of specifically worker housing. So much of the new housing was built in a very uncoordinated fashion, and the city's footprint as a result just expanded very, very quickly outwards. And given that Juarez is situated right in the U.S. border, the bulk of migrants coming from further south often, the bulk of migrants coming from the further south that have a destination, with the U.S., they eventually get, in a sense, stuck in Juarez because U.S. immigration will essentially prohibit them from going any further. And so the result of that is a massive number of people with no fixed residence in Juarez kind of being forced to establish makeshift settlements within the city and just await, U.S. judges to approve their trials.
Okay, and when it comes to solutions, what has the government actually done or planned to regularize these areas and extend basic services and infrastructure?
So over the years, authorities have tried several approaches. They have developed the land regularization programs, which give residents the legal rights to the land that they are currently occupying. They've also bought a lot of infrastructure extension projects, which will bring, water, electricity, and, paved roads to a lot of these settlements. And the government as well started promoting the affordable housing initiatives along with, other developers.
So it's not about just stopping the informal settlement, it's also about managing the growth of the city.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, smart urban planning, plays a crucial role in this, and the city is investing in the right zones, increasing public transport, creating affordable housing near the employment sites that's formalized and integrated with the city's infrastructure. And the ultimate goal is to convert this informal settlement into, something organized and truly part of our city.
Yeah, that's an important point because at the end of the day, it's home to thousands of working families who are already a part of the city fabric.
That conversation, guys. We certainly have learned a lot about one of the many cities in the world on its way to becoming resilient.
I think that was super insightful.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, Jaime.
My pleasure. Anytime, guys.
Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap this episode up? Jaime?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say very briefly, Juarez has lived through harsh conditions, currently living through a lot of harsh conditions, whether it be water stress, violence and insecurity, uncontrolled urban growth, but we're still here and we're still learning. And that's what I think, makes Juarez the city I love is that regardless of all these problems, we still manage to survive. And the resilience strategy is a sign that the city is taking resilience seriously. And they're planning for future shocks, reducing the stresses of everyday life in the city, and building systems that protect people. And that's why I definitely do have hope for Ciudad Juarez.
Beautifully said. Perfect note to end today's episode. And that's a wrap for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. See you guys again on the next episode.